Two people are dead following a shooting this morning in Keswick. Police set up a perimeter in the area of Bayview Park, asking the public to avoid this area as a double homicide investigation gets underway. Good afternoon. We are following this developing news in York Region.
Police confirming what started as reports of gunshots has turned into a double homicide investigation, sending nearby schools into a hold and secure. CTV's John Musselman is at the scene with the very latest. John.
Well, Nathan, we've had a chance to speak to some neighbors here who live near the park behind me. They said they heard multiple gunshots ring out around 7:30 this morning. Again, this did happen in a park behind me. In some of the video, you'll see where this is located. We're in the town of Keswick. That's about 20 minutes north of Newmarket. This is a residential area. People say the park is quite popular here. What we seem to have been hearing from neighbors is that there was an exchange, or possibly an exchange, of gunfire, multiple shots. When police arrived on the scene, they did find two adult males in the park. Both were pronounced dead on the scene. Those bodies remain in the park now. Forensic investigators have been on the scene as well, gathering evidence. Here's what some of the neighbors had to tell us when we arrived here this morning to ask them what happened.
We heard some gunshots, and we were thinking it was like duck hunting or whatever. And yeah, but within about 5 minutes, all of a sudden there was a whole bunch of cops, leading us to believe that it was not duck hunting.
Just a lot of police activity. I saw a bunch of ambulances, and I seen paramedics come out of the park with a stretcher that was empty, and then I kind of knew.
Now, a lot of residents are obviously shaken by this news. This is an active investigation. We're waiting for an update from York Regional Police. That's expected to happen in the next few minutes. If we get that information, we'll share it with you as soon as we can. Reporting live at the scene, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, John. Residents of a high-rise in Scarborough are shaken after a person died in a fire last night.
Scorch marks are visible in the upper levels where the blaze broke out. CTV's Beth McDonnell is live in Scarborough with more on the aftermath of this fire. Beth, what have you learned?
Michelle, residents are feeling sad today after having to scramble during an intense and deadly fire. Crews raised the ladder to the fire burning in the 9th floor unit, but it was too late.
It's really sad. We've barely been able to deal with it.
Around 8:30 last night, firefighters were called to Bridletown Circle near Warden and Finch. One person died, another sent to hospital with minor injuries. Residents say there are a lot of seniors in the building, including the victim.
She would come downstairs for some fresh air. She used a wheelchair, obviously. So it's really sad because we actually know she was nice. She would talk to people. It's really sad that she perished in the fire, to go this way.
Some residents are now displaced, having to go elsewhere because of the damage, says this man.
How did it start? This is a big fire. It was no fooling around. It wasn't like a little kitchen fire or nothing like that. So it's just bad.
The Toronto Police Forensic Unit is also attending alongside fire to understand what went wrong.
Crews are currently working on sizing down the incident. Currently, they're working with building management to assess how many of the units have been affected by this fire and if people can reoccupy portions of the 9th floor. So that work is underway right now. And then the incident will transition to an investigation portion because there is a fatality.
Based on the investigation to date, no foul play is suspected. Police and fire crews are still here. The investigation continues. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. And still ahead, the Toronto Maple Leafs officially opened training camp today. We're live at the Ford Training Center with more coming up a little later in the newscast.
But first, two men in their 20s are dead after gunfire broke out in North York.
The shooting happened in the middle of the day outside a housing complex near Jane and Driftwood. Residents who heard and saw the gunfire are left shaken. CTV's Mike Walker has more.
Evidence markers are scattered across the parking lot of a housing complex where two men were killed after a brazen daytime shooting.
I didn't count the shots, but I think around 5, 6, 7, something like this.
Mohammed was working in the area when gunfire erupted shortly after 2 at the Toronto Community Housing Complex near Jane and Driftwood. He rushed over to the scene and saw one of the victims lying on the ground.
People were running, screaming.
Responding officers found 2 men in their 20s suffering from gunshot wounds. One man was pronounced dead at the scene. The other was rushed to hospital where he later died from his injuries. Now, a double homicide investigation.
It would appear that this was an altercation between a group of people and gunshots broke out. The suspects then left the scene. We have no suspect descriptions to provide at this time.
The circumstances that led to the altercation and the shooting are not clear. Investigators could not say if there was an exchange of gunfire between the victims and suspects, but police say they did recover 2 firearms at the scene.
We were almost finished with our work when we heard the shots. I was terrified. I was really terrified. I didn't know how to react. I just wanted to go back home.
A city-run childcare center is nearby. 2 schools in the area were briefly placed in lockdown. A community left reeling by this latest act of gun violence.
It's very, very terrifying. I feel bad. I feel sorry for the family that lost their member. And and I fear because we have kids, and the kids, they play around here, right?
We recognize that incidents like this are shocking to a community, and we are asking for information that would help us determine who is responsible.
Police stepping up their presence in the community, which includes a command post, as they canvass the area for witnesses.
Mike Walker, CTV News, Toronto.
Several viewers shared footage of a building fire in the city's East End. Emergency crews were called to a condo under construction at Danforth and Broadview at around 9:30 this morning. They say they arrived to find heavy flames and smoke on the roof, but were able to get a handle on the fire and quickly knock it down. The district fire chief said roofing materials apparently ignited and about 40 firefighters responded to the blaze. No injuries were reported. And police have made an arrest in a sexual assault from August. 31-year-old Kevin D'Souza has been charged with 3 counts of sexual assault, as well as assault, possession of counterfeit money, and failing to comply with the release order in connection with the incident. Police say a man sexually assaulted 3 women on the York University campus August 15th. He tried to draw them into a private area before sexually assaulting them. Police are concerned there may be more victims.
Meanwhile, police are searching for a suspect in connection with 3 sexual assaults dating back to June. The first incident happened June 1st in the area of DuPont and Edwin Avenue. The next happened July 4th near DuPont and Campbell Ave. The third happened on Monday, once again near DuPont and Edwin Avenue. Police say the suspect is around 35 years old, stands between 5'8", 5'11" inches tall. They're asking anyone with any information to come forward.
We have more news in a moment, but first, here's a look at the forecast. A midsummer weather trend continues. A lovely looking afternoon and still no rain in the next few days. Jessica Smith is here with a look at the current conditions. Hey, Jess.
Hey, another beautiful day, albeit a little cloudier as we head throughout the day today. We're seeing the leading edge of a system staying way south of us, but we will get the cloud cover from it as we head throughout the day today. A little sunnier through Pearson, a little cloudier the closer you get to the downtown core, but overall it is dry and really beautiful outside temperature-wise once again. We're already sitting in that low to mid 20 point, feeling into the upper 20s, and the heat really is on this afternoon. We do have a more easterly wind throughout the day, a bit more of a raw wind, but because of the ridge in the jet stream and just that warm air that has really overtaken the entire province, we're not seeing the winds have much, if any, effect on cooling anything down. Over towards the islands, it's a little cooler, not by much, 21 feeling like 28. Through Pearson, a little more cloud cover than the downtown core right now, but that kind of switches into the afternoon. But it already feels into that upper 20 point. This afternoon will sit around 26. It will feel into the low 30s. So despite it not being terribly hot outside, that humidity is going to be an issue once again as we head throughout the day today. So if you do have outdoor plans, just take into account that it is going to be a little bit sticky out there. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast. We'll keep a close eye on the potential of rain in the long range, but for now, it is staying dry and mostly sunny as we head throughout the day today. Coming up, your full forecast right now. Back over to Nathan and Michelle.
All right, thank you, Jessica.
Thanks.
Well, it's that time of year again where hope springs eternal. Leafs training camp gets underway today.
It comes with some major changes for the Buds, like a new head coach and team captain. CTV's Sean Leathong is live at Ford Performance Center this afternoon with the latest. Exciting time of year, Sean.
It certainly is, Michelle and Nathan, and there is a bit of a buzz in the rink today, but the players themselves, while they're doing some off-ice workouts today, mostly are doing promotional videos, the type of things you'll see on TV during the game, and meeting with the media. Once they get that done, they will hit the ice tomorrow. Now, the last time we saw the Leafs on the ice was, of course, Game 7 against the Boston Bruins, that heartbreaking loss in overtime. And since that time, there has been a significant amount of change. Less than a week later, we know that Craig Berube became the new Leafs head coach. And then a couple of months after that, Austin Matthews being named captain, taking over the captaincy from John Tavares. And then there was the offseason additions. There was Oliver Ekman-Larsson, a defenseman who won the Stanley Cup with Florida last year. Then Chris Tanev, another defenseman, came over from Dallas. They noted that it had been a lot of big D that they're bringing in this year. Now, when the players were speaking today, Mitch Marner talked about what it's like to be here in Toronto, what it's like to play for the Leafs, and how much that means to him. And also, Craig Berube spoke about what the team's going to look like this year. But first, we start with Captain Austin Matthews on what the coach expects from him.
He's been clear on how he wants to play, and I think that's been something that he's communicated really well to not just like myself and the leaders, but to everybody that's been coming in.
I think overall it's going to be a different system, a different style of play that you'll notice the difference. And overall we want to play a fast North game and get after it. We want to be aggressive.
It's my home. It's the place that I've grown up. I got many memories of watching this team play on Saturday night hockey with my family in the family room, just sitting there for hours watching, and not being able to live that dream, it's pretty special.
Now, we focus on the new players and the new faces that tend to come in during an off-season, but GM Brad Treliving was also talking about the improvement they get from within. They really work in the off-season to focus on percentage improvements of each player. They're hoping to get more out of this team, and Treliving says he does believe that this is a better team than last season. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leathong. I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Sean. A big shakeup this morning in the Canadian sports world. Bell is selling its share in Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment to Rogers Communications. The two companies hold equal shares of MLSE, which owns the Toronto Maple Leafs, Toronto Raptors, Toronto Argonauts, TFC, and the Marlies.
BCE is selling its 37.5% stake in Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. Rogers will be paying a whopping $4.7 billion under the deal, and it's subject to league and regulatory approval.
Bell Media says it has secured access to content rights for the Toronto Maple Leafs and Toronto Raptors on TSN for the next 20 years through a long-term agreement with Rogers. The deal is expected to close in 2025. Bell CEO also reacting to this news, saying the company is proud of its time and co-owners and will continue its support of the sports teams. In a statement, Mirko Bibic says this announcement demonstrates that the company is focused on creating the financial flexibility to support an ongoing transformation. Bell is the parent company of CTV News.
Paul Taylor is the chief investment officer with Purpose Investments and says the deal makes sense for Bell.
I think making sure TSN has that content for a while is going to be a big thing for Bell. So it could be a win-win. Pay off some of the debt and keep the content that they really wanted.
Taylor also says the partnership between Rogers and Bell in MLSE ownership lasted longer than many thought it would. Well, thousands are expected to march to Queen's Park supporting Grassy Narrows First Nations members.
The demonstrators are demanding justice for what they say is the ongoing pollution of the First Nations watershed. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris is at the scene with more. Siobhan.
Well, we're at Grange Park right now, Nathan, where all of these people are starting to stream into the park. I'll get out of the way so you can see some of what we are seeing. The program just starting now with some speeches. This group is headed to Queen's Park to demand an end to the ongoing mercury poisoning they say that has been happening since the 1960s. The paper mill locally says that stopped, but a report earlier this year showed that poisoning is ongoing. I talked to the chief of Grassy Narrows, who says this has just been devastating for his community. It's been poisoning generations of members of that community, leading to ill health effects, making it difficult for them to earn a living, to live full and fulfilling lives. I spoke to another woman who said that this disgusts her as an Indigenous woman, as a Canadian, that if this were happening in downtown Toronto, it would not be permitted. She thinks about how her own children run out into the sprinkler in the summer months without any second thought, something that is not possible for the children of Grassy Narrows. So this group will head to Queen's Park to deliver that message to the provincial government. They also want the federal government to put an end to what is happening along the French River. They did file a lawsuit with naming those two governments earlier this year. They do hope finally, after decades of advocacy, that the governments will hear that message today. Reporting live, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan and Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. York Regional Police right now are providing an update on the deadly shooting we talked about at the top of the hour in Keswick. This happened this morning. Let's listen in live to the update.
Appears to be, it is isolated. We are not, we are hoping that community members can come forward and provide more information that can help with this investigation. And so there is no threat to the community in here, no threat to the public here.
How many suspects are you looking for? Do you have any idea?
We do not have that information at this time. Again, we are appealing to the community members to contact investigators if they have any information.
Any reason to believe that there may be more than one firearm involved?
We are looking, we don't know right now. We don't know. It's possible. Again, we're not sure if it's one firearm, if it's two firearms, we don't know right now.
What are the genders of the people that were found dead, please?
So again, we can't release any further information of the deceased parties until the next of kin has been notified.
Were they related, these two victims?
That is part of the investigation.
Is this a domestic situation?
At this time, we can't provide any further information about the victims until the next of kin have been notified, and we can't release any further information about the victims.
But there is a, sorry to cut you off, there is a suspect outstanding, is that right?
We are looking to identify a suspect or suspects in this case.
Why do you say it that way? You're looking to identify. Do you have information that there was other people around at the time of the shooting?
We are appealing again for the witnesses to come forward to help us with that. Again, we are still trying to piece together what had happened here today, and so the more information we can get from community members, the more that can assist in our investigation.
The time of day is interesting because we've heard people walking through the park as they walk their dogs. It's kind of an interesting time. Have you had calls in this area before? Is there a history in the park at all?
I can't speak on to what has happened here in the past, but again, like you said, given the time of the day, we are appealing to anyone who was in the area to contact our investigators who saw anything or heard anything.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So police there giving a brief update on a double shooting in Keswick this morning. 2 people are dead. Not much information there, but some of the key things that they say it's an isolated incident, that there is no threat to the community. They are looking to identify a suspect or suspects, but not many other details. It's worth noting nearby schools in this area were put into hold and secure. Clearly, it's in the early stages of the investigation, and they're not going to mention any details on those who are dead as they notify family members and loved ones. We'll continue to follow this developing story. We'll have more at 5 and 6.
Also at Queen's Park, we're set to get the latest update from the province on the state of Ontario's finances. Treasury Board President Caroline Mulroney and Finance Minister Peter Bethlenfalvy will release Ontario's public accounts for 2023-24 tomorrow. They're set to outline the final audited results for the province and where government funds have been spent, as well as details on where the deficit stands. The most recent public accounts place the deficit at $5.9 billion, with the province noting that figure was $14 billion lower than the 2022 budget had projected.
You could call it a political game of chicken on Parliament Hill, one that could lead to a federal election. The Conservatives vow to bring a vote of non-confidence on the government, and it appears Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government is going to let such a vote happen next week. Let's bring in CTV's Scott Hurst for the latest on this. Let's start with the confidence vote. What's expected there?
Michelle, this is a high-stakes move that Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre had been promising since the end of the NDP Liberal Supply and Confidence Agreement. Of course, a couple of weeks ago, we heard from NDP leader Jagmeet Singh saying he's ripping up the Confidence and Supply Agreement as the NDP try to carve their own path in this fall session. And this is now the first major test of the fall session. The high-stakes move putting all MPs on record and putting the parties on record and we're learning more about what the non-confidence motion will say. It's expected to say the House has no confidence in the Prime Minister and the government, and that is what MPs will be voting on. And so it's short, it's simple, it's clear, it's concise. And so that is what MPs will have to go on record to vote for or against. Earlier this morning, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has been calling on NDP leader Jagmeet Singh and the Bloc as well, saying, put your stance on record. Where do you stand? Jagmeet Singh has been quite critical of the Liberals since the ripping up of the confidence and supply agreement. But now there comes a non-confidence vote, which will happen Tuesday, introduced Tuesday, and expected to be voted on Wednesday. Here's more from the Conservative leader this morning.
I also call on the NDP, don't wait for the Bloc to bail you out.
You need
Announce
the Bloc,
your
though,
position on this motion to trigger a carbon tax election now. You have the motion. It's in your inbox. We're emailing it to him now. And all of you will have that motion for a carbon tax election, which you'll see is very direct, very simple.
You heard him say there, announce your position, and that's what the Conservative leader wants to get from the NDP and wants to get from the Bloc Québécois. And so that is why this motion is being put forward, and that is why it is quite simple, where it says that the House doesn't have confidence in the Prime Minister and the government.
Well, let's talk about the NDP leader. Jagmeet Singh spoke to his caucus this morning. What is he saying?
Of course, the political dynamics in Parliament have shifted significantly, firstly, since they've ripped up the confidence and supply agreement. Also, the Liberals, for their part, have lost 2 by-elections in former stronghold ridings, and the Liberals and the NDP, for that matter, have not been faring very well throughout the summertime in the polling. So now with the fall session returning, they'll have to go on record. But we've been hearing from the NDP leader, and he reiterated this morning in front of his caucus, as he's been saying since he ripped up the confidence and supply agreement, saying the Liberals, they've let Canadians down and that they don't deserve another chance. Yet now is when they'll have to go on record. However, Jagmeet Singh is not yet finalizing or firming up their stance from the NDP. Here's more of what he had to say, speaking to his caucus this morning before we learn about the specifics of the motion.
We've seen the Liberals and Justin Trudeau have let people down. People are fed up. They feel like situations, things in their lives have gotten worse. And so the Liberals and Justin Trudeau don't deserve another chance. We know that Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives want to do one thing. They want to cut. If you want to fight back, join us. New Democrats are ready for this fight. We're ready to come together and to win for people. We're ready to stop Conservative cuts, and we're ready to form the next government.
So how quickly will that election be? We'll have to wait and see next week, but it is quite a balancing act for the NDP and the Bloc Québécois right now.
Interesting time. CTV's Scott Hurst live for us in the CTV National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
The federal inquiry into foreign interference is hearing from current and former politicians today. All have been identified as targets of meddling by the People's Republic of China.
Phone calls from the mission, the PRC missions here to MPs when they make statements or when they take certain actions in the House of Commons or its committees. You know, for example, I recall an incident several parliaments ago where a committee was decided to undertake a study of a particular issue around the PRC and got a very angry series of phone calls from the PRC mission here.
New Democrat MP Jenny Kwan is also testifying as the latest hearings focus on the capacity of federal agencies to detect, deter, and counter foreign interference. Former Conservative leader Erin O'Toole will also testify this afternoon at the inquiry that will produce a final report by the end of the year.
Explosions went off in multiple parts of Lebanon today in an apparent second wave of detonations of electronic devices. Yesterday, at least 12 people were killed and about 2,800 others were injured when pagers used by Hezbollah members began detonating. There were also civilian casualties. The militant group blames Israel, which has not commented. Today, Hezbollah officials and state media said walkie-talkies and solar equipment detonated. Lebanon's health ministry says at least 9 people were killed and 300 were injured. In another development, the UN General Assembly strongly supported a non-binding Palestinian resolution today demanding Israel end its presence in Gaza and the occupied West Bank within a year.
The U.S. Justice Department is suing the owner and manager of the cargo ship that caused the Baltimore bridge collapse in March. 6 people were killed in the tragedy, which the lawsuit alleges was entirely avoidable. It says the electrical and mechanical systems on the ship were improperly maintained, and that caused the vessel to lose power and veer off course before striking a support column on the bridge. The Justice Department is seeking more than $100 million that the government spent to clear the underwater debris and reopen the city's port. The victims' families have declared their intent to file a claim seeking to hold the ship's owner and manager liable.
People around the world turn their eyes skyward to view a partial lunar eclipse and a supermoon at the same time. This type of eclipse happens when the Earth passes between the sun and the moon, casting a shadow that darkens part of the moon. Since the moon inched closer to Earth than usual and appeared a bit larger in the sky as well, this celestial treat was visible in clear skies across North and South America, Africa, and Europe, and was the second and final one of the year. The full moon will stick around until Thursday. Jess.
It was super cool to see, and we have a beautiful day after that supermoon. A little more cloud cover through parts of the GTA today, but overall it is still really warm outside. This above seasonal trend, it ain't going nowhere. So if you like the warmer kind of transition into fall, we have that and then some as we head through the next couple of days. A little sunnier in different points of the afternoon, sitting at 26, feeling into the low 30s, and a really light kind of easterly wind. But even with that cloud cover, we still have a UV index on the high side, so still protect yourself if you plan on spending some time outdoors. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast as we step into the official start to the fall season this weekend.
Well, earlier in the week, we were eyeing Wednesday as potentially, cloudy, but even so, it's not that bad. It's really another nice day. We just keep getting beautiful days.
Yeah, maybe even better than expected. Like this morning, went for a walk and maybe didn't even need a jacket. It's that nice.
We're still holding on to this warmth into the early morning hours in the evening. So if you do have activities to kind of start and end the day, it's warm enough that you don't need those layers. And it is a little cloudier today. There's a system sitting south of us that, I guess thankfully, or maybe not thankfully, depending on how you like rain, isn't coming close to us, but we will get the cloud cover as we head throughout the day. It won't bring the active weather, but it brings kind of that feeling. But it has been a beautiful day again as we get the kind of fall season underway officially this weekend. Temperature-wise this morning, if you were up early, it wasn't so bad to get out for a walk, as Nathan mentioned, in that sunrise time happening a little later in the day, but it doesn't mean it's not still beautiful. Weather is brought to you by Lee Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers you don't pay unless they win. Now, we saw a beautiful kind of pinkish start to the day. I like to thematically dress. I dressed hopefully kind of like a sunrise this morning. It is beautiful when we have these types of starts to the day, sometimes indicative of active weather, but for us, it really is just kind of the wavelengths of light kind of making their way through the particles in the air and kind of appearing as a pink hue, but it was beautiful if you saw that sunrise early on this morning. A little cloud cover out there, you can see that in this shot, and that continues off and on as we head throughout our Wednesday. It's not going to be one of those brilliant blue sky type of days, but it doesn't mean it's going to cool things down. We're still holding on to a ton of warmth. And as you see kind of the oranges, the deeper oranges, the reds, those colors that kind of encompassing the entire province, that's indicative of that warmer air that is in place for everybody. We're at 20 through Peawanuck, feeling like 25. It feels like 27 in Timmins already. For us here in the city, it feels like 28, and it only gets warmer as we head into the afternoon. We're looking at around 26, so fairly similar to yesterday, but it will feel again into the 30s, and almost everybody holding on to that heat today, even with a more easterly kind of flow to the winds. Heading into this evening, almost identical to yesterday, sitting around 17. We should be at 11. It's warm. Bancroft is closer to where they should be, but almost everybody is going to see a bit of a warmer evening ahead of us, and that really doesn't change too much as we head through the next couple of days. We are watching for, again, that system sitting south of the border, going to predominantly push its way in towards Atlantic Canada. So for us, it's just the cloud cover again, but it doesn't last too long, and then we're holding on to high pressure. We'll keep a close eye on the system as we head in towards next week, because that's the potential of the next round of rain, but it will take a while for it to get here. Throughout the rest of our afternoon, again, it's just a little cloud cover out there, but the UV index is still relatively high at a 6, so keep that in mind. Just because it isn't brilliantly sunny outside doesn't mean the sun protection isn't still needed. As we head in towards our Thursday, the high pressure really clears out that cloud cover. Sunshine holds on as we head throughout the end of the week and step into the beginning of the weekend. Really beautiful if you want to spend some time outside. Now, temperature-wise, we don't really get anywhere close to the seasonal mark until next week. So if you like the cooler or cool-ish weather, we don't really get it until we get through the weekend. Temperature-wise, today, tomorrow, almost identical, a little cooler into our Thursday night. But it really doesn't change all that much, just a lot of sunshine and a lot of warmth. We're sitting in that kind of mid-20 range right through till about Saturday, and even then we're still kind of in the low end of the mid-20s, sitting around 24. We kick off the fall equinox on Sunday. We see a little rain potentially throughout the day, Monday into Tuesday, and then we get back into a stretch of sunshine. Nathan, Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Jess. Well, as fall approaches, insects and animals are starting to prepare for winter.
That includes bees and wasps, which can certainly become a nuisance around your home as they look for a safe, warm place to hibernate. CTV's Ashley Bacon has more on how to make your home less attractive to these unwelcome guests.
Some of these stings from the bees and wasps are pretty harsh.
You may have noticed an uptick in bee and wasp activity around your home over the last couple of weeks.
As we have cooler days, cooler nights, they're attracted to the exterior of the building for the warmth. And the females or the queens are looking for a place to overwinter.
Bees will find a place to hibernate, but most of the wasp population dies over winter, leaving the mated queen alone to start a new colony come spring. That means right now, the rest of the wasps are spending what time they have left looking for food.
There may be, new virgin queens and males that are getting ready to leave the colony on their mating flight. So you have this situation where you have all these wasps flying around with not a lot to do in terms of taking care of the colony, and an appetite for sugary food.
Mike Dunn from Orkin, Canada says warmer temperatures year over year have resulted in a bumper population and more bee and wasp problems for homeowners.
We've definitely noticed an uptake in the number of calls we've received this summer. There's more of a survival rate at this time. Last year we had very little snow, of course, and very little cold weather. So the survival rate through the winter increases as well.
Removing leftover garden vegetation is one preventative measure to help deter wasps and other pests from making your home their home. And there are other things you can do.
Basically starts with a thorough inspection of the exterior of the home. And by that we're looking for cracks around windows and doors, that screens are in good repair, that there's not refuse or waste material around the home.
But the University of Guelph's Andrew Young says if the nest isn't bothering anyone, leave it alone.
If there's a wasp or a bee nest that's on my property but not actually attached to the house or in the house, I usually just leave it alone. I mean, if there's a wasp nest in a tree or something, it's only going to be there for the 1 year. They don't survive multiple years.
And when it comes to removing a nest from your home or property, according to the experts, it's best to leave that job to the professionals. Ashley Bacon, CTV News, Kitchener.
A new series of videos from Holland Blue Review discusses inclusion, dating, and sex.
And as our health reporter Pauline Chan tells us, is aimed at giving people with disabilities their own voice.
Especially because Gavi Engel-Yan now has a whole new set of teachers and classmates. Despite her differences in speaking, Gavi is a typical teenager, gifted in art and eager to make her voice heard. That's why she collaborated with Holland Blue Review Kids Rehab to create her own video over the summer.
We really identified that there was a lack of really good tailored resources for kids with disabilities around sexuality. And we're talking sexuality in its broadest sense.
The various videos deal with topics like making friends, dating, romance, and more. Gabby's family understands her speech more easily, but she also types, especially for complex answers to teachers' questions. The important thing is that she's given the opportunity to express herself. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
As Toronto police try to improve response times for frontline officers, they're launching a new pilot program alongside several of the city's major hospitals. Under current rules, police officers who apprehend someone under the Mental Health Act have to stay with that individual at the hospital awaiting transfer, sometimes for several hours. Under this one-year pilot, 2 special constables will be embedded into ERs as integrated hospital officers who will take over those transfer responsibilities from the frontline officers. They'll be on duty 18 hours a day at Humber River Hospital, Toronto Western Hospital, and St. Michael's Hospital.
More Canadians are coming forward claiming to have listeria after drinking recalled plant-based milk.
The outbreak turned deadly this summer, and some experts are renewing urgent pleas to track and prevent the spread of foodborne illnesses. CTV's Adrian Gabriel reports.
A bacterial infection has been sifting its way through Canadian communities.
I vomited. It was about 2 a.m. I had hot and cold sweats, and I'm like, ooh, what's going on?
The summer recall of a long list of plant-based milk beverages due to a listeria outbreak has proven fatal in Canada. As of August, the Public Health Agency linked 20 illnesses, 15 hospitalizations, and 3 deaths to the outbreak, though the numbers are likely much higher.
For every case of foodborne illness that we know about, on average, there's likely an additional 20 to 25 cases that we don't know about.
Cheryl McComb was unaware that a foodborne bacterial illness was likely attacking her system. That is, until she saw the news about the recall and realized she had one of the plant-based milk brands sitting in her fridge.
So we checked the UPC codes on the box, the cartons that we had, and it matched the recall. I thought, oh, okay.
The first case was reported in September of 2023, though it wasn't until July of this year that the source of the outbreak was identified and the recall was issued. Foodborne pathogen experts believe there's much more regulators should be doing.
We need to, in Canada, really look at developing active foodborne surveillance systems, as opposed to the passive system which we currently have, which relies on the sick individual to initiate the contact.
When a sick patient does arrive at hospital, many are denied a test.
I didn't fit the protocols for testing.
In Ontario, testing is mainly recommended for those who are over the age of 65, immunocompromised, or pregnant.
One of the comments that I did hear as well from my doctor's office was, we don't have a community outbreak. And I'm like, well, if you're not testing in a more efficient way, how do you know?
Cheryl McComb tells us that she's sharing her story to raise awareness in hopes that it can help others quickly identify a foodborne illness and head straight to the hospital. Adrian Gabriel, CTV News, Toronto.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
More now on that multi-billion-dollar deal today affecting ownership of 2 of Canada's biggest sports teams, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Toronto Raptors.
Andrew Bell of B&M Bloomberg has the latest in business.
Hello there. Here are your business headlines. Rogers Communications is buying BCE's 37.5% stake in Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, which owns assets including the Toronto Maple Leafs and Toronto Raptors, for $4.7 billion. Rogers, which currently splits a 75% stake in MLSE with BCE, said financing for the deal will include private investors and will not affect its debt leverage. BCE, which is the parent of CTV and B&M Bloomberg, plans to use the cash to cut debt and invest in growth. US and Canadian stocks were little changed in morning trading as investors worldwide awaited the interest rate announcement by the Federal Reserve at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Rates in the US are at 20-year highs, and some investors were wagering on a big 0.5 percentage point reduction in borrowing costs to strengthen the economy. And finally, oil slipped below $71 US a barrel amid concerns over China's demand outlook. Iran-based Hezbollah accused Israel of orchestrating an attack in Lebanon using exploding pagers. That raised some concerns over Mideast conflict and a possible threat to oil supply. Lackluster consumption, meanwhile, has seen some refineries in Europe reduce processing rates. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg.
If you own a home, chances are you have a water heater. And in Ontario, many people rent their water heaters instead of owning them.
Companies say that renting equipment comes with peace of mind, but over time, it'll cost you more than buying it outright. CTV's Pat Foran has more details in this consumer alert.
James Alves of Etobicoke is now on a fixed income and decided he no longer wanted to pay a monthly rental fee for his water heater.
It was just costing too much money, and after 8 years, I figured I had paid enough in rental fees for the hot water tank.
Alves says over the past 8 years, he paid more than $4,000 in rental fees. He was shocked to be told to end his contract would cost him an additional payment of more than $1,000.
For something that I could buy now for about $1,200, they would have charged about $4,500 in total. It's ridiculous.
When he complained to Enercare, they reduced the buyout price by $250. A spokesperson for Enercare told CTV News, "Our rental contract includes the option to customers to purchase the equipment to end a contract. As a valued and long-standing customer, a goodwill credit was already applied to his account to reduce the purchase price."
Once you buy one, you don't have to pay that monthly rental anymore.
No, once you buy that, you own it.
In many parts of Canada, homeowners own their water tanks, but in Ontario, people have become used to renting them even though they don't have to.
A lot of people who are in the rental market have been in the rental market and then they move in and they already have a rental tank. So they just continue on with their monthly payment.
There are electric and natural gas models. Power vent and tankless options will cost more. A basic water heater is about $800 to purchase and another $800 to install, but prices will vary depending on your situation.
$1,500, probably about $2,200, and you have your own water heater that you will get installed. We'll go in and take out the old one and put in the new.
Alves says in the future he'll always own his water tank and never plans to rent one again.
It's had no service calls, nothing on it, and they want me to pay basically almost the cost of another new one for an 8-year-old tank.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
Blue Jays begin their final road trip of the season with the game against the Texas Rangers last night.
Down the right field line, it is going to be a fair ball.
The Jays jumped out to an early 3-run lead. However, the Rangers came back to take the lead on their own. Now, the Jays later tied the game with a homer in the 5th inning. However, they ended up losing the game 13-8. The teams will continue their series tonight. First pitch is just after 8.
Toronto FC hosts the Columbus Crew tonight. TFC coming off a 2-1 win over Austin Saturday and currently in a playoff position after a sluggish start to the season. TFC lost to Columbus 4-0 back in July, but have since had a better league record than the defending MLS champions.
A record amount of cash was up for grabs in last night's Lotto Max jackpot, and it's set to be split by 2 lucky winners. For the first time ever, the top prize was $80 million after the cap increased earlier this month. While Canadians across the country tried their luck, 2 winning tickets were sold, one in Grey County here in Ontario and the other in Quebec. While they're each worth $40 million, there were also Max Millions and Encore winners or partial winners in Toronto, Whitby, Guelph, and other parts of the province.
Coming up, excitement is building for foodies in Toronto. The new Michelin Guide is set to be released tonight. More on the anticipation just ahead.
It's set to be a big night for Toronto's culinary scene as the new Michelin Guide is unveiled. Local eateries will find out if they've received a coveted Michelin star or another designation from the tire maker turned taste maker. Michelin first launched its Toronto guide in 2022, and for the first time this year, its inspectors ventured outside city limits to consider restaurants located across the region. As things stand, the city boasts 13 restaurants with 1 star and 1 restaurant with 2. Sushi Misaki Saito, I hope I said that right. You ever been there? Sounds good.
I have. I'd love to go there. I mean, that designation can be game-changing for restaurants, right? It's an exciting time. I was thinking, too, patio season is still alive and well, although these days are fleeting.
I know. If you can get out to some of these patios, I know some of those restaurants in the city that do have those designations and those stars are really exciting, and some of them have patios, and you can still enjoy them right through to almost the end of the month. Today, a little cloudier out there, but still really pleasant for spending some time outside. Again, we're watching for showers south of the border. For us, it just comes in the way of some cloud cover throughout the day. Temperature-wise, we're at 23. It feels like 28, but we are on our way up when it comes to those temperatures. As we head in towards our afternoon, sitting in that mid-20 range, feeling into the low 30s. So it is going to be a toasty one once again. Almost an identical forecast right through to the end of the week when we get ready to kick off the fall season, officially the fall equinox on Sunday. We are keeping an eye on that rain, but overall, that's not till next week. That's a next week problem.
All right, that was good. Thank you, Jess. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and the whole team here, have a wonderful afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great afternoon.